Forward, young Muslims, wherever you are, in the shadow of the sun or by the light of a star, your supreme protector is Almighty Allah. Go forward, young Muslims, wherever you are. Go forward, young Muslims, whoever you are. Press forward and forward to the light of Allah, and repeat, Alhamdulillah. Go forward, young Muslims, whoever you are.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to our program, Teens and Parents, where we are going to be discussing issues pertaining to, who else? Teens and parents. We're attempting to bridge the gap that seems to be growing more and more every day. And what way can we do that better by discussing this particular topic? Well, what is it? Coping with authority. Okay, now what does that mean? Some people feel that there is no authority except that which they want to do and that which is pleasing to them. That's their authority. That is their circle or their own boundaries, that which they put forward. So we are going to be discussing this here today when we have a very special guest. So please, just sit back, relax, put the remote on the side, and stay tuned.
Go forward, young Muslims, wherever you are, in the shadow of the sun or by the light of a star.
So in reference to how young people or young adults, adolescents cope with today's authority figures and how they are in relations to that is really unique. From my experience with working with young adults, being an authority figure, being in a position of leadership, I've found that young people usually approach or engage authority figures from a perspective of an earned respect. I think traditionally and conventionally, you know, as an adolescent, it was an assumed respect in reference to a authority figure or an adult figure. In the current times, I think that that's not what's so. I think that young people are very unique. Young people are very intelligent. Young people are maturing at a faster pace, and that when they engage authority figures, the assumption that the respect is there based upon them being an authority figure is not there. It has to be an earned respect from young people.
Go forward, young Muslims, wherever you are, in the shadow of the sun or by the light of a star.
Welcome back. Okay, now you've taken a look at some of the footage that we have had an opportunity to film. Now, let's move forward and introduce our first guest. He is a psychologist, and he practices both in America and also in the Middle Eastern areas, and his name is Dr. Yasser Al-Ma'nawi. And I'd like to greet you with Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Dr. Yasser, we're sitting here and we're discussing the topic of coping with authority.
Yes.
Okay. There are some people that just kind of, never grow out of the stage, like children who think that they can do anything, go anywhere, be whoever it is that they want to be. And they never quite get out of that mode. How does it affect the life of a person who feels that they can do whatever it is that they want, even considering the hudud or the boundaries of Allah?
True. Okay, let me begin by saying in psychology we have that disorder. We call it oppositional defiant disorder. Oppositional defiant, it's usually for teenagers. Okay, you tell them right, they say no, it's left. You said okay, it's left, they say it's right. Okay, whatever you say, they're going to say the opposite. Okay, that's one part. And the other part of that is a defiance. They defy any and all rules, whether it's the school or home or anywhere else, or the police rules or anything. They just have to break the rules. And that's why we came up with this joke that we say, well, rules are made to be broken. Okay. And from an Islamic point of view, that who doesn't fear God, he fears nobody else, and he has no respect for any rules or anything else in our life. Okay, so we have to take a look at both areas together, the spiritual area and the developmental area.
Okay. At what point should the concept that there are rules, there are boundaries, at what age should that start to become apparent inside of a child?
Well, first it takes place at the very beginning, from the very beginning, from the time of birth. But the first years of life, they learn that there are rules. The rules will change after a period of time, but they learn the rules. The second 7 year, that's when you instill the rules in them. Okay, they learn that there are boundaries and there are rules. So children who grow to have no rules and no boundaries, it's really not their fault. It's their parents' fault, because the parents broke all the rules with them. They had no boundaries with them. Not intentionally, because no parent would want to break the rules with their kids. As a matter of fact, parents who have children like that, they are the most tired people in this whole equation, because they don't know how to control them. They don't know how to communicate with them. Their kids get into a lot of trouble, a lot of problems, and they don't know what to do. But it was their doing to begin with. So that's why in treatment, what we teach people, we teach parents how to set boundaries. Because parenting is not all about loving and that's all. No, it's about loving, it's about correcting, it's about boundaries, it's about setting boundaries. Let me tell you about teenagers who have problem with authority. It's not because they're not afraid of authority. It's because they have no sense of security inside of them.
They have no sense of security.
No sense of security.
Okay.
Okay. And low self-esteem.
But if you have a child who grows up in a household where the parents have no respect themselves for authority, for the laws of Allah, even the laws of the land, everything is basically that, okay, well, we can do it, no problem. Is this giving rise to these children, or is this something that they're born with?
No, it's given rise to the children. They're not born with it. The children, when they're born like a white sheet of paper. You can write on it whatever you want to write. You can print on it whatever you want to print. So I don't believe that they're born like that. They are taught these habits. They learn these habits. Kids, on the other hand, who are very spoiled, they grow up to have no respect for authority whatsoever. Okay, everything they want, they think they can get. Children who see their parents who get in trouble and get out of it in a devious way, so they learn that, okay, there are no rules. I can do whatever I want, and my father will get me out of it, or I will learn how to get out of it.
Now, you mentioned that they sometimes feel that I'll just do whatever I want to do anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Do people with this type of behavior, do they genuinely feel that there will be no response to some of the things that they may do? Or is it that they just don't care? Whatever happens to me, it doesn't make a difference. My sole purpose is to do what pleases me.
Yes, it could be both of them. It's actually both of them. Because, to give you an example, I have a child who would come, this is one of the cases I used to work on. A child who used to go home, do whatever he wants to do, and his parents would go and punish him, and then right after the punishment, they would reward him.
Reward him for what?
For they feel guilty, and they would say, oh, I love you and this, you got your punishment, and now we're cool, we're okay.
Wait a minute. So he would do something wrong and be punished, and then get a reward for handling the punishment.
Yes, it's like, oh, I love you, now you're good, you did your punishment, and everything is okay. Okay? He didn't learn anything. That's not punishment. Okay? And we're not talking about punishment like spanking or anything like that. We're talking about punishment which is, you take something away from him that has, or from her, that has an intrinsic value to them. That's what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So what kind of sense do they develop? They develop a sense that I will do it again. That's easy, and I'll do it again. Okay? You have the other kind, which is spoiled kind. I want what I want when I want it. I don't care what happens. Okay? And some people don't ever grow out of that. That's why you find the majority of addicts, they're not bad people. The majority of addicts, they just want what they want when they want it.
Okay, but those who have this spoiled mentality, and traditionally, when we think of the word spoiled, we're thinking of a 3 or 4 or 5-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
And we generally don't think of someone 15, 16, 17, or 37, 38, and 39
Yes.
as spoiled. But, I mean, do they believe that what they're doing is always correct? Or is it, again, I'm trying to understand this concept, because there's one thing that you don't care. I'm going to, that right there does not belong to me. I don't really care if it does or it doesn't. I'm going to take it.
Yep.
And someone else that may, as you mentioned, feel compelled. I don't have money, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take it, and like this. But the question is, that do they not understand that what they're doing is totally wrong? But please, you have to hold the thought. We're going to have to go to a break, and we're going to come back, because this is important. This is what shapes people, and those same people go on to get married, to have children, to become president of a company, and they bring that same mentality to the boardroom, to the bedroom, to their families. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back. Dr. Yasser Al-Ma'nawi, stay with us.
Go forward, young Muslims, wherever you are, in the shadow of the sun or by the light of a star.
I think they cope with authority through relationship. I think that they cope through authority through an open relationship, an open self-expression, and a dialogue with authority figures, from a mutual respect space, from an equality and equitable space. And so I think that is their mode of operation when it comes to authority, as if they can see themselves on an equal plane, if they can see themselves having a safe space, then they are more open and subject to being with authority figures from a respectable manner, and from a perspective of where they would be willing to receive coaching, or willing to receive mentoring, or willing to receive instructions or direction, or even rules for that matter, from authority figures. So that's their coping mechanism from my perspective and my experience with working with young people.
Go forward, young Muslims, wherever you are, in the shadow of the sun or by the light of a star.
The Philosophy of Islamic Law, a program for restoring belief and trust within Muslims' mind and heart, and for re-establishing a true concept about Islamic rules for others.
Wherever you are, in the shadow of the sun or by the light of a star.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to our program, Teens and Parents, where we are discussing a topic today that is very, very important. And what is it? Coping with authority. Now, some people may not see the importance of that. Just some spoiled children or something like that. No problem. You just pat them on the backside and then just send them outside to play with a glass of milk. But sometimes those same spoiled children who have a problem with authority grow up into larger ones, and this can have a disastrous effect on one's wife, husband, children, and society on a whole. So I want to get back to you, Dr. Yasser, with the question that we had just before we went to the break about being aware. Now, someone who is a chain smoker, who can't walk a flight of stairs, but is still smoking, he's aware that he knows what his problem is. Maybe he can or cannot do anything about it. But are these people who are suffering from this, are they aware that they have an issue?
Initially, they're not. And then some of them are. What happens is that one type of them is very self-consumed, meaning that they're selfish. They can't take a look at anything outside of themselves. Okay, and this is the type that we talked about. I want what I want when I want it, and I don't care about anybody. I don't care about the consequences or anything else. Okay, this is one type. The other type is the type that is actually aware, and they are defiant, and they enjoy it. If they're not treated in the teenage years, they will turn out to be a problem with the law. Okay, you could have a murderer. You could have anybody that would do anything harmful. Okay, 9 times out of 10, this is what's going to happen to them, because it's progressive. It goes along with you and it progresses with you. Just like everybody grows mentally, physically, and spiritually, this piece grows with them. Okay, you have the other part is that they cannot get into a relationship. When they get married, they do get married, but the relationship, instead of them getting in and out of it, and they're loving each other, it's a parallel relationship. Okay, it's almost like in competition with somebody else. All right, this is what happens. So the relationship ends up doing what? Failing. It doesn't work out. Okay, so they need treatment, and with the psychological treatment, they certainly do need spiritual treatment, because most of the time people like this, they forget somewhere along the line that there is a higher power, or there is God, or there is,
Okay. I would like to introduce to the people our other guest that's here, and his name is Fadi Mutawalli. So we'd like to greet him with Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you also for joining myself and Dr. Yasser here in discussing this particular topic. Alhamdulillah, you grew up in the States and spent time in Canada and all. Do you see that this problem, this selfishness, this total lack of authority, is it more prevalent, would you say, in Western societies, or is it more prevalent in Eastern or Middle Eastern societies?
I believe it's more prevalent, it's more in the West. I think it's more in the West.
Is there anything that you would say is egging that on, that is encouraging that?
I believe it's the way they're brought up, because in the States, when you're 18, you have to move out of your, or you don't have to, but most of the people move out when they're 18. You're an adult when you're 18. They teach you to be more independent. And in the Middle East, we're more sheltered, and there's also a religious background due to this issue, which is birrul walidain, which is, in other words, being obedient to your parents. So, for instance, when you're 36 in the States, for instance, you barely call your parents. But here, if you don't call your mom when how old you are, in the Middle East, that's a bad thing, because there's religious reasons back to the way we think, So, and plus, in Western society, when, we've talked about in earlier episodes, there's more freedom, or, the children and the premarital sexual activities and the drinking and all these problems, So, listening to your parents or being obedient, this is something you just try to repel at an earlier age than compared to other places.
Okay. Dr. Yasser, this thing about obedience to one's parents, just like he may have mentioned birrul walidain.
Yes.
This is a big concept in Islam, but this is ignored. Is there some correlation with a lack of adherence to the religion and this phenomenon of having no respect for authority? Because I'm sensing, and maybe you can tell me if I'm right or I'm wrong, but someone who has this blatant disregard for authority, what type of effect will that have on that person's iltizam, or their holding fast to the religion?
Well, it's good that you brought up this issue, because human beings were created, and God sent the book from the very beginning of creation for the nizam and iltizam. Okay, so without that, everybody would get lost, whether it's the East or the West. And that's where we are right now. In the States, for instance, and in the West, they have more freedom. Okay, with the freedom, they have more choices. With the choices, they have more responsibilities. Okay, so this, some time ago, I used to think it's because of the freedom, but it's not because of the freedom, because here, people have freedom too, but they have the iltizam, they have the rules, and they go by the rules. The rules is not the parents' rules, because if you take a look at the rules and the values and all of that, and you take the chain all the way to the very beginning, where did it come from? It came from Adam and Eve. And where did this come from? It came from God. Okay, so we have to take a look at the spiritual part behind that. And the more you stray away spiritually, and you don't have spirits in your life, you don't have religion in your life, the more you lose. You don't actually defy authority. Children at that age, they're not defying authority. They're expressing their strength in a wrong way. Okay? That's why we say if it's not treated early on, it will take a different look.
At what point can we say that it crosses that boundary from expressing their strength to having a blatant disregard for authority?
At the age of 18. Okay, in the States we have, for instance, in the Department of Juvenile Justice, they try to work hand in hand with the schools and with the parents. Okay, and they actually lock kids in the detention. Mm-hmm. Okay, does that work? No, it doesn't, because we used to get kids out of the detention and teach them about the rules, the values of family, God's rules, and they were eager to know. They didn't know. And you look at them in the group, they were just sitting there like, they want to know, they want to know. The more they know, the more tools they have to utilize, and the more they're going to be able to act or behave correctly. Okay? If that doesn't happen during that time, they will turn out to be somebody who's against the law, somebody who doesn't have a family. They don't want that, because you never saw any kid who's walking behind his mom and say, Mom, I want to be a criminal. I mean, it doesn't happen like that. But they turn out to be that way.
Okay, Dr. Yasser, we're going to have to take a break. But when we come back, we're going to have to start to discuss issues in terms of cure. Because I'm sure that we all know some people who have that, just don't listen to anybody. But sometimes these people seem to be very, very normal. They look like normal, functional people. But behind closed doors, they're really very dysfunctional. They cannot maintain relationships, whether they be friendship, husband, wife, or what have you. We're going to discuss it. We're going to focus on cures for these issues. Teens and parents. We'll be right back. I'm your host, Bilal Abdul Kareem.
Go forward, young Muslims, wherever you are, in the shadow of the sun or by the light of a star. Your supreme protector is Almighty Allah. Go forward, young Muslims, wherever you are. Go forward, young Muslims, whoever you are. Press forward and forward to the light of Allah, and repeat, Alhamdulillah. Go forward, young Muslims, whoever you are.